everybody. Welcome to Can't Wait Sounds Terrible. My friends here, Natalie, Eleni, Patrick. We love talking about Chicago and Springfield politics. We love talking about our friends in the media who are fighting the good fight. And like the title of this little pod, there is so much terribleness that we are filled with schadenfreude, the definition of which is the enjoyment of the misfortune of others. And that describes our feeling, Eleni, about lawmakers returning back to work in Springfield. So the Chicago Tribune and the Sun-Times both did some scene setters on this. I thought there were a couple of good observations in the Tribune piece by Jeremy Gorner and Olivia Olander. In an election year General Assembly session where what won't pass will likely be as telling as what might, Illinois lawmakers return to the Capitol facing a familiar but narrowing path, avoiding politically radioactive fights, plug a more than $2 billion budget hole, and sell voters on a single unifying theme Democrats are leaning on from Washington to Springfield: affordability. Sounds like done and dusted. Should be no problem. Should be a short session.
Well, I think we all know that we won't see any theatrics until after the primary in March. And even then, I would say the agenda will be very politically driven, and decisions will be made based on where races stand and obviously what's happening on the federal level, and how that's going to be affecting all the fun stuff we get to do here in Illinois.
Eleni and Natalie, it's always interesting explaining to outsiders just how much politics infests the sort of routine government operations calendar.
Yep. There's, we were just talking about this yesterday. Uh, it's hard to explain how there is no structure around what's happening inside the Capitol, and you never know what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's really signaling how we like to run things here in Illinois.
It's a great display of human nature. I always talk about, when you have these bills that pass, not that this will happen this May, but May 31st, you're going into Memorial Day weekend, and there's this flurry of activity at 11:59, and they stop the clock, to make sure you get everything done. Like, you've had 6 months. Why are we doing this at the last minute? It's like looking at my kid who leaves his homework assignment to the last minute or the night before band practice, like jamming in the lesson that he completely forgot to do over Christmas break. Not that I'm at all speaking from experience, but it is the most incredible display of human nature, watching the General Assembly, especially from afar, City Council too, but really the General Assembly. So.
Yes, the Illinois budget for the next fiscal year might be crumpled up in the bottom of lawmakers' veritable backpacks until late May. Patrick, when they do pull that out of the backpack, and we'll be talking about that this year, the skeptical part of me believes maybe this relates to Eleni's scene setter about the elections being upon us, that Speaker Welch did a scene setter of his own at a number of speaking engagements and media tour, and he floated quote, and this was in a couple different outlets, we should tax millionaires very similar to the way they do in Massachusetts. We've tested that twice on the ballot, and people support a surcharge on millionaires. How is that going to go out there in DuPage County?
It's the drug side that could. It's the little blue engine that could. It's just going to keep chugging up the hill. But I think proponents can point to Massachusetts. I think skeptics can point to California, where stalwarts of the business community are just leaving because they don't want to deal with the confiscation tax that's proposed. And more importantly, you see a lot of these tech entrepreneurs, many of whom are supportive of the Democratic Party, saying these proposals threaten to strip away control of founder-led companies. So, we can point to Massachusetts. You can point to two failed votes so far, but we'll just tax the rich, and your definition of rich can be different than mine, and we'll find somebody else to pay for everything.
Time-honored tradition. Speaking of taxes and tax bills, the Tribune's A.D. Quig had a story recently, and I'll just read a little intro from it and get your reaction. Late property tax bills weren't just an inconvenience for homeowners and businesses. They were a drag on taxing districts around Cook County to the collective tune of almost $122 million for school districts alone, according to a group of suburban school leaders. And they wrote a letter to Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle and Treasurer Maria Pappas, and the finger pointing seems to be going towards the county's technology provider, Tyler Technologies, who, over a long-running and budget-challenged project, did an upgrade to the county's property tax system, moving decades of data off of aging mainframe computers into a new system. But as the Tribune said, it was plagued for several years by repeated setbacks and finger-pointing over who was to blame. Preckwinkle's Bureau of Technology commissioned and helps to manage the project, but the county clerk, assessor, and treasurer have been tasked with on-the-ground execution. So a lot of finger-pointing. The bills got out late, and therefore the payments to government got out late, and they were left holding the bag at the local government level. It's making Eleni cry.
I mean, my property tax bill is still a trigger point for me, so I'm probably not the best person to be opining objectively on anything.
So she's going to
related
pass.
This is just an epic disaster, and that's saying a lot in Cook County and the city of Chicago. I mean, and it's been going on for years, and God bless A.D. Quig for trying to go down this wormhole of, government contractors and vendors and, doing the FOIAs to get the information. But if you look at every corner of the property tax system is broken, so you're saying Preckwinkle, the assessor, the tax bills went out late, the assessors blaming the Board of Review for all the shifts to the residential owners. The Board of Review is blaming the assessor. Tony Preckwinkle seemingly just blaming Tyler. I don't know, and Maria Pappas pointing back at somebody else. And meanwhile, what you didn't even mention is that there's also a Supreme Court ruling that the state has now been found in violation of, because in Springfield, the other body that can't get anything done, failed to pass a bill last session that would get the state of Illinois and all of the counties who do property tax sales on delinquent taxes back in compliance with the Supreme Court ruling that says you can't do these property tax sales unless you ensure that the sellers or the original homeowners get the equity back on their property. Just been ripping off bedraggled homeowners for years, and they can't even get that done. So we just need to blow up the whole system and start over. I don't see how, you cannot fix this. It is such a disaster. Where do you even begin? So
that Ron DeSantis was joining us on the call.
Wow, that's a stretch, Patrick.
I would say, though, where you start is you zero out my property tax bill.
All four of us, all five of us, yes.
No, but me first. Then everybody.
Grace. Then you. Okay, first. Right. I tried to appeal mine. We just moved, and the township assessor, who I always go to, or township office that provides us help with that, was like, "You can't do it yet." I was like, "Well, I'll be first in line when we can appeal."
Patrick, maybe this is Natalie's incremental move, closer to DuPage County. Maybe it's starting to, the air is starting to come across the border. It sounds like someone's going to get sued at some point, and we will be talking about it here on Sounds Terrible. Speaking of Sounds Terrible, and we've been careful about about this, and certainly involves a lot of lawyers, but this had an interesting political observation. So recently, the Attorney General of Illinois, Kwame Raoul, and the governor and some other attorneys general from other blue states have filed a federal suit against the federal government, accusing U.S. Border Patrol Commander Bovino and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem of, quote, an organized bombardment under the guise of immigration enforcement that has caused turmoil and created a climate of fear. And they believe that this is, raising some constitutional arguments, very novel arguments. We'll see how it all plays out. It's the latest shot in federal court. Here's my observation. Talking to, as a fallen away lawyer and fallen away Catholic, I've talked to a few lawyers over the years, including some former colleagues of Natalie's in the Attorney General's office who, until recently just thought that our Attorney General was very low key. And yet it appears that as this fighting and as this amping up of attacks from ICE and the federal government in blue states and in Chicago, that the Attorney General, Raoul, has kind of stepped up. And he has not been incendiary in his language, although this is strong language in this lawsuit. He has, I don't know, has he found his footing, Natalie, after being very kind of low profile in his role and earlier in his term?
Yeah, I'm nodding as you're talking, and what I can say is I'm very heartened to see all of these actions. The rule of law seems to be, the last front in all of this that seems to be holding the line up till now. Obviously the administration doesn't care about the people protesting in the streets, and they're just trying to push and see how far they can get. So I'm very heartened to see Illinois joining with Minnesota. And what I will tell you is, Kwame Raoul, very different character than Lisa Madigan, but he's recruited a really high caliber team, some of whom are former colleagues of mine that returned to the office because they're so motivated to fill this role and fill this void, if you will. Extremely talented litigators and lawyers, and so it is. I can't sleep at night, but it helps me get a little drowsy. So I'm heartened to see that we're continuing to fight the good fight, and applause to that office for fulfilling their role.
Eleni, what do you think about taking the fight to court instead of maybe the more haphazard street protest approach?
I mean, I think he's doing the right thing, and I think, to your point, we've seen a change in the strategy from his office, and it's definitely the right move at this time, given everything that's happening just nationally as well.
As we've said before, there's really nothing conservative about sending federal police in to violate all the local standards and local laws, and we're pretty we have a lot of ties to law enforcement. We have a lot of ties to the defense bar, and normally the rule of law governs the street policing, but that's not been the case here in Chicago or in Minnesota. All right, it's time for things that are even worse, things that sound terrible. Producer Grace, I think this deserves a sounder just to have a good transition, so you'll throw that in here. All right, who wants to go first?
I'll jump in. So my little guy just lost his first tooth. It's been an excruciating process. It's like he's losing a limb or something. Finally came out yesterday at school in the library. He had to go see the nurse. He got the little treasure chest. Gets home and goes to put it under his pillow for the tooth fairy to come. There's a $5 bill under his pillow. I have no idea how the $5 bill got there. He thinks he's coming to me, Mom, did you put it there? no. Dad, I'm like, I don't know. So mystery, like maybe Buster the Elf put it there. I don't know, like last standing move from Buster. But like we had to like follow up with that. And the only cash we had was a $5 bill. So now my kid thinks the going rate for a lost tooth is $10. And all the parents are going to hate me.
Well, Patrick, once again, affordability is an issue.
Inflation is out of control. She's going to blame Jerome Powell.
You could go buy a gallon of milk.
It's Biden. Biden's fault.
Thanks, Obama.
Right. Eleni, what sounds terrible for you?
So we talked about it a little bit with session starting, of course, that's terrible. But ultimately, what's the most terrible thing, which I think all of our friends that work in and out of that building are feeling, is that the calendar this year has only one chamber scheduled each week for the next like 2-3 months. So one week the Senate's in, the next week the House is in, which really just makes it very complicated.
And it just means nothing is really going to happen.
Exactly.
Like that's all you
Nothing's
need
going
to
to
see.
happen. But also, like, you know, if you have clients coming in town, you know, that are working on issues and they want to meet with the members of the legislature, how is that going to work? And there was some commentary about lobby days, like how do associations set up lobby days when only one chamber is there? So I think April and May are when both chambers should be in simultaneously will prove to be an insane scheduling SHIT show. So not sure what we're allowed to say. I can't remember if we're allowed to swear on here. So just
Well, Patrick, I think it's safe to say that there'll be fewer stupid laws as a result.
Questionable.
Maybe we could just program AI to have the other chamber react as like an experiment. Like what this is going on, and we could just have a virtual session.
Well, it can't be any worse. What do you got? That's terrible.
You know what? I did think there was a little bit of a master class Sunday night that came out of the Federal Reserve, and I thought for a very boring institution to see Jerome Powell efficiently and directly address the American people with a 2-minute statement that seems to just cut through everything. For anyone looking to study things, the means and mechanism of distribution and so forth was pretty spot on, and it appeared to have had tremendous success in that numerous Republicans are saying, Jerome Powell is a bad Fed chair, but this doesn't seem right. And so I think as we all look at cutting through things in the modern day, it sounds terrible, but we can all look to the Federal Reserve.
Well, who knew that the Federal Reserve chair was an influencer? But I guess it took the motivation of Jeanine Pirro and Donald Trump breathing down his neck to sort of put an end to Fed independence. All right, my sounds terribleness relates to the Bears in the playoffs. So the Burbfather has gone viral. I don't know if you all have seen this yet. Producer Grace will show a video here so that we can all take it in, but I'll describe it to you as well. There's a guy named Rick Lura. He's got a bunch of kids, and he has the baby in the rocker, and he's watching the Bears game in his man cave. And as the Bears have their last second defensive stop to beat the Packers, he celebrated exuberantly, but without saying a word because he doesn't want to wake the baby up.
Heart beating furiously. It's dropped. Love looking. One last guess. Moving guys around. Fire.
Well, ESPN found that video, called him the real MVP. Turns out Rick Lura is as a side hustle, considers himself an influencer. So he did have the camera staged on himself, but it does highlight the problem that these very, very stressful playoff football games create for parents. Now, Some of you noticed by my youthful appearance, I'm a grandfather, and there's these modern babies. They have a lot of technology. They have sound machines. They have sleep sacks. They have blackout shades. They have it all, and so it seems like there's some ways to keep the babies from being awakened by the Bears game. But more importantly, when you see Rick Laura celebrating quietly, he's keeping a lot of emotions in. And our friend Marissa Sulik, friend of the pod, did a story about cardiologists weighing in now. And she quoted Dr. Arjun Mehta at Rush University, who said that, quote, "It felt unhealthy for me. I was at the game last night. The second half, I'm pretty sure my heart rate was 130 beats per minute for an hour straight." He said they are seeing an increase in emergency room visits during the Bears playoffs. So anyone with pre-existing conditions, the Bears are going to kill people, basically. And Rick and the baby, they're suffering for their art. And so it sounds terrible, but it's got to be done. Long wind up for that kick. But
could be worse. I mean, they could not be winning at all. So
that's right. That's right. If a few people have to die.
In our visits during Bears playoff games, there's been one.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. If you could do one of your patented deep dives on this to get more data, and perhaps you'll be bringing that to a future episode, and it will definitely be terrible, and we can't wait for it. And if there is something terrible, we're waiting for it big time. That's Natalie, that's Eleni, that's Patrick. Producer Grace produces this. She's also draws stuff. You can find her on Etsy. We appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time.